Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Steady Horse Live. I am super excited to be with everyone this evening. And of course, remember, we are doing a giveaway at the end of the Steady Horse Live this evening, so make sure you stay until the end so you can see who's won the giveaway. As usual, I would like to start out answering some of the questions that come through via email, Facebook Messenger, through the Steady Horse Video Club Messaging Center that have come through during the week. And a lot of times y'all throw up a lot of really good questions up there. And so I like to take a handful of those and address them on here. That way everybody gets the benefit of talking about those particular questions that have been submitted. But don't forget, go ahead and submit questions here this evening. Any questions that you submit up here, Peter's going to throw them up on the screen over here for me. That way I've got them handy and I can go through those questions as well. So make sure that you throw your questions on there, and I'm going to try my best to get to as many questions as I possibly can. And lastly, as you guys are jumping on in here, make sure you say hello, make sure you say hi. Let me know where you're from, say your name. That I can make sure that I say hello to you throughout the Steady Horse Live this evening. So great, I see a few of you jumping on here, and we're gonna get started in just a little bit here. Okay, let's see here. And then going through these questions, we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 member questions that I'm gonna roll through, and then we're gonna jump into the questions that you guys have this evening. All right, so let me say hi to a few of you that are jumping on here. And I see Pamiliu from Northeast Texas. Good to see you. Good evening. I also see Leanne. Glad to have you, Leanne. And we got Stacy from Pennsylvania. So glad you could join us this evening, Stacy. Let's see. Also, I see we have Sean from Minnesota, and I see Sharon and Greg jumping on here as well. So great. I see a bunch of y'all jumping on in here, and I see a couple more of you guys trickling on in. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. So my first question is from Nancy. It says, my mare's anxious to get out to another field to graze with other horses. She is pulling me. How do I stop her from doing that? So there are a couple things I would do here. If I have a horse anxious, you know, and they're just kind of pacing back and forth, they're pulling on you. The first thing is, before they get to that place where they're just pulling and yanking, it's kind of like a gradual progression, right? And so right now it might be pretty bad, but a lot of times you can kind of tell when they're going to do that kind of behavior before it happens. So it's important to be vigilant and pay attention and to begin to correct it before it gets really bad, right? So for example, if I go to halter her up, the moment I halter her up, I might back her up a little bit and say, hey, let me have you back up out of my space. And the moment my pony kind of creeps back away from my space, I'll take a nice big deep breath. Let my horse know that they made a good decision by backing away from me there, okay? Another thing that I might do too is just let them just stand there, okay? So if they're running back and forth, I'll correct them, back them up, ask them to stand. Once my pony stands still, then we can continue out of the gate to wherever we're going to. So you see, the idea here is to begin to communicate what your expectation is. We have an expectation for my horse to be mindful, to be respectful, right? To have pretty decent manners where they're not just trying to climb over the top of me or not minding me because they're so anxious and excited and all of that. So definitely take your time, take it nice and slow with them. Make sure that you set it up from the beginning, that you have real clear black and white expectations of how you expect them to behave, so that by the time you're walking out that gate, you've already established some things with them. Then lastly, what I would do is, if she's really pulling and yanking, let her go ahead and drift over to the fence where the other horses are grazing, and then start to work her in that area. Really engage her hind end up on her knee, her, get her moving, because what's going to happen by getting her moving is you're going to get her working a little bit. And so you're going to begin to create an association that, hey, when she floats over there by all her other friends over there, well, that means that you're going to have to do some work. So I'm going to get you working. So you can go over there, but you're going to work. Now, when you come and you're over by me, where I want you to be, we take those nice big deep breaths. We love and rub on our ponies. We affirm them, let them know that they've made some really good decisions by sticking with us and not pulling away. So don't be discouraged. Take your time, work on it step by step. And like with everything else, just look for slight progress. If you get slight progress, go ahead and put her back up or let her stand tight or whatever the case might be. Don't try to just get it all out of her in one session. It's always better to have the expectation of gradual progress with your horse. So that was a really, really good question. Thank you for that question, Nancy. I hope that helps you. Okay, so I want to say hi to a couple more of y'all that have jumped on here. Oh, thank you. So Miwilas from North Texas, I guess it is. And thank you for giving me the phonetic for the pronunciation of your name, because I know I've been botching it for like a couple of weeks now. But I see here it's Miwilos. So I'm going to try and remember that, Miwilos. Okay. So we have Mo Earl from Florida. We have Miwilos. And we also have Dawn and Joelle from New York. And Marcia from Minnesota that have jumped on to join us. All right, so I've got another question from Kathy, and it says, I have a people-shy mare. I've had her with the trainer for 6 months, and they can only touch her head by roping her, working their way up the rope to her rear, and then eating up her body to get a halter on her. She had to be trapped in a trailer or a tight stall. Is there any way I can work on desensitizing her? Absolutely, Kathy. Yeah. So, if you can get away with being able to be able to put a halter on a horse without having to rope them, that's definitely my first preferred method. Now, with some horses, it can be dangerous, and so you might have to use a rope. And I hate to do that, but there's some horses where you might just have to use a rope in order to get them safely enough to teach them how to yield to pressure to where you can begin to put a halter on them. And that's what it sounds like had to happen, okay? So this is where you are. Let's work through it, right? So what we want to do is we want to be gradual in our approach with her, okay? So if she's worried about ropes because she had a traumatic experience being roped, just start nice and light with a soft rope, from a distance, beginning to desensitize her from that. And of course, like with anything else, if she starts to wiggle or dance around or shy away, you're going to maintain the pressure and just kind of walk with her until she relaxes, right? And once she relaxes, she settles those feet, maybe she lowers that head and neck, then we're going to immediately take the pressure away, let our pony know that they made a good decision. The key with getting a horse over traumatic situations like that is being gradual in the process. Be slow, look for slight progress, reward that slight progress, and then back off and let your pony kind of soak it in. And then your next training session, you can always build off of that. And just be aware, Kathy, like a horse that's fearful, that fear is so real, right? And so it's not as if that horse is just being mean or doesn't want to mind you, or some people say, that horse doesn't respect you, and I don't believe that kind of crap. I think that a lot of horses, when they have these fears, that they're genuine, and so we just need to be aware of the fact that we have fears too, right? And imagine if someone's like, just get over it, suck it up, right? And so it's much better and it's much more encouraging when people help us along the way, give us a little bit of grace when maybe our fears are irrational, but they're understanding and they help us to move along. And that's our job with our horses, right? So be nice and gradual and take your time with your mare, and you guys will get there for sure. Great question, Kathy. Thank you so much for that. Okay, I've got another question from Katie. It says, what is the oldest horse you would buy or adopt for leisure riding purposes? Oh, well, that's a hard one. That's one of those questions that's like, it depends, right? And so a lot of it depends on the health of the horse. It depends a lot too on the temperament of the horse. Is this a hot horse? Is this a relaxed horse? Because if it's a hot horse and it's an older horse, well, are they going to get worked up? And you're going to have going to have to do a lot of groundwork with them and a lot of physical work to where it can be too taxing on them. So my best recommendation is, of course, make sure that they can comfortably and soundly carry you and be able to ride out comfortably, right, without coming back home all sore and in pain, because we want our horses to have a good, healthy, and comfortable life. And then, of course, consult with a vet. Go ahead and do a vet check with that horse. Make sure that they're going to be able to at least comfortably have a productive riding life. And that, again, is going to depend on the horse. You could have a 16 or 18-year-old horse that has some medical issues that might not be fit for riding, right? In fact, I've got a 15-year-old horse right now that is not fit for riding, so he does not do any riding. But then you might have like a 23-year-old horse that's fit as a fiddle, right? And can be very productive and take you out on a ride without any consequences of being sore or having issues. So definitely consult with your vet, and hopefully they can work with you to help you figure out what kind of productive life that horse can comfortably have for you. Great question, Katie. Thank you so much for that. I see a couple more of y'all have jumped on too. Let me make sure I say hello. I see Terry from Maynard. Good to see you this evening, Terry. And then also Mary Alice from George. Hello from King George. Good to see you, Mary Alice. And then also I see Susan from Georgia. So glad y'all can jump on here. And I see a bunch more of y'all have jumped on, but it's kind of hard to keep up with all the names. So if I missed you and you jumped on here, I am so sorry. But know that I'm so appreciative that you've jumped on here and you've joined us this evening. Okay, so I've got another question here from Linda, and it says, I have a horse that is a spook. He has been through years of desensitizing, and I still feel he isn't safe to get on. He can be handled one day and be fine the next. He will, let's see here. He will spook because I reach towards him to pet him. Any suggestions to overcome this issue? One of the things I recommend, if you have a horse that's really spooky, I definitely recommend going through my gradual desensitizing program. I see that you are a club member, so you probably already have that DVD and you have access to it in the Steady Horse Club. One of the things about gradual desensitizing is not everybody desensitizes the same, because I have a lot of horses that come to me, and there are some exceptions where there's some horses that are just really insecure and have really just traumatic experiences and fears that gradually still need to be worked through. But with a lot of horses, if we are consistent, and the key here is, and the key here is making sure that we are looking for progress. So we're not looking for too much too soon, okay? Because a lot of times what we're looking for is we're looking for that horse to just, boom, be quiet, drop their head, be relaxed, right? And we're overlooking a lot of progress that horse is making. So maybe that horse is still dancing, but instead of dancing for 10 seconds, maybe today he's dancing for 8 seconds. That's improvement, right? Maybe yesterday, you were waving a feed sack over his head and you could touch his ears with it, right? And he was good. And maybe today you go to pick up your hand and he's reactive. Well, don't be discouraged. All that means is we need to go back in there, encourage him, build him up, and gradually your pony is going to get there. But stick with it. Be consistent with the training, especially if you have one that's pretty difficult. You really need to put the time and hours in and day out, to kind of progress them. And even if it's just a few minutes each, put that time in so that you can help to encourage your horse. The other thing that I encourage you to do between that kind of what I like to call consistent training is do a little bit of abrupt training. Throw some things in that are a little bit faster, maybe a little bit spooky or a little bit more sporadic. We're throwing things back and forth so that your horse doesn't just get into the routine of desensitizing, okay? Because if you do the same kind of program and the same steps over and over again, your horse can be familiar with that. But if you're not throwing it up and changing things up on them, well, you're not giving them an opportunity, in that controlled environment to be exposed to deviations from the norm, right? And that's what's really important is how does my pony act when something out of the ordinary or something unexpected happens, right? So take your time with your pony, be consistent as far as working with them, but also throw some deviations in there in order to expand his ability to be nice and quiet and relax when crazy things come his way. And if you do that, you're going to find that you guys are going to make progress. And I know with some horses that are particularly tough, it can be very, very discouraging. Don't be discouraged. Go ahead and keep your eye on that prize and look for that little bits of progress that he gives you, because that's going to help too with the attitude and the approach that you bring towards him when you're working with him. So I hope that helps you there. It's a really good question, Linda. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I see a bunch more of y'all have jumped on, so let me say hello to you. I see, let's see, we got Sydney from Wisco. Good to see you. We got Sarah from Lakeland. We've got Ashlyn from Texas. Diane Carlson. Good evening, Diane. Always good to see you. We got Mary Kay from New York. Judy Miller from Iowa. And we have Kara from South Carolina. Doris from Albia. We got Patricia from Atkins. And we've got Rebecca Frost from North Carolina. So glad that all of y'all are jumping on in here this evening. Glad to see you. So grateful for y'all to spend your evening with me for a little bit of time and with each other so that we can talk about horse stuff. So glad to have y'all this evening. Okay, this is going to be my last question from the Steady Horse Club members that I address, and then I'm going to go ahead and jump in to some of the questions that y'all have jumped on and put on this evening. So this one is from Sabata, and it says, my gelding is 16 years old and has several issues. He's buddy sour, destination addiction, lots of anxiety with lots of go. He's very forward, and I want to try and work with him. I thought your training would help him trust me as a leader. Any suggestions? Okay, so destination, addiction, you said buddy sour, lots of anxiety, and lots of go. One of the things, and when I was kind of cutting my teeth in horses years ago, like I get a lot of these like just high energy horses, crazy horses that are rearing up, horses that are taking off, horses that are bolting off the track, horses that nobody can slow down. And one of the things that's pretty consistent with all these horses that just have this propulsion, it's want to go, be doing something, is there's an inconsistency with the handler, okay? And so what I mean by that is, for example, I might have a horse that's dancing around and just lots of energy, dancing. And I might see an owner, they might say, quit once, and then they start talking to their friend, and then that horse dances for a little bit, and they don't make the same correction and say, hey, quit, slow down, you don't have to do that. And it's not about just quit to stop. I always like to substitute stop with let's do something with your feet, okay? So if my horse is standing there and say he's dancing, I might start backing him up. I mean, backing him up is always a real easy one to go to, right? So I might back him up, and then the moment he's backing up nice and quiet and relaxed, I'll go right back to what I was doing. But the moment he starts dancing again, I'm going to go back to backing him up and making him kind of divert his thinking. I like to talk about these pattern interrupts. I want to interrupt that thought process of the anxiety, the calling out to his buddy, he's dancing around, to diverting that energy into his feet and backing him up and having him do something productive, soft, kind of composed with those feet. And so I'm saying, hey, when you stop thinking about that and you start focusing on what I have you to do, what happens is your horse begins to understand, wow, this is really nice. I'm not dancing around, I'm not pacing around and spending all this energy. I'm nice and relaxed. I get to rest. This is awesome. And so I want to encourage you to, the biggest thing is just be consistent. If you're going to start correcting that behavior, be consistent with it. And it starts on the ground, right? Make sure that on the ground that he's exhibiting good manners. He's not pushy. He's not just crowding up into your space, that you're slowing him down, taking a deep breath, making him back up, and then leaving him alone and rubbing on him and then stepping away and letting him just stand there on his own, right? But then if the moment he picks it back up, we go right back to it. Consistency is key. And if you go through, because I see you are a Steady Horse Club member, if you go through the exercises, especially the ground exercises, and make sure that he's doing it softly, relaxed, quietly, right? And don't move from one exercise to another. Or even, sometimes when I go through these exercises, I'm teaching you step by step how to do some of these exercises. Don't move from one step to the next until your horse is doing it quietly and relaxed. Because, the method of how I do this stuff, it doesn't matter, right? This is more about the approach, how you handle your horse, right? How you encourage them and teach them that you are a good leader, that you're fair. And if you do that with them, if you're nice and steady and consistent, your horse is going to learn that they can trust you to be fair. And when they know that they can trust you to be fair, you are going to be amazed at the incredible connection and bond that you build with that horse. Great question, Sabata. Thank you very much for that question. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into some of the questions that you guys have thrown up here this evening. So first one I'm going to address is one from Tammy. It says, what would cause a horse's back legs and hoofs to twist when she walks? Oh, goodness. So that's a really good question, but that's another one that's going to be a little bit above my pay grade, if you will. You're getting the consultation of a vet there. Now, there obviously are some things, like, for example, the gait of different horses depending on breed. Some of those departures in the back legs, the way that they walk off, are going to vary. So one thing to look at is what kind of breed horse are you looking at? But then obviously the other thing too is there could be some type of physical impairity that's going on. And so definitely if you feel like your horse is walking off or walking lame, I always like to get another set of eyes, because sometimes when I've been looking at a horse for a period of time, like, I miss things. In fact, this morning I had a friend come out and look at one of my horses. And so definitely get the advice of a vet that can definitively tell you, if there is something going on. And if you can't get to a vet immediately, just get another pair of eyes from a horse knowledgeable person. And another thing you can do if you have a horse that's sound is just kind of have the two horses walk side by side, have somebody leading them, and take a look and see what's going on, just to give you an idea of what's stemming the movement that looks like that twisting movement, that kind of thing. That would be my recommendation and what I would do if it were my pony. But I would definitely, if there was any concern of that horse being lame or having an issue, I'd go ahead and have my vet. So great question. Sorry I can give you like a definitive answer there. Okay, we got a question from Patricia. Good to see you, Trish, from Atkins. Says, how do I keep Possum from crowding and getting pushy at feeding time? Okay, so that's a really good one. So a lot of horses, they can be very food motivated, right? And so they're super excited and happy when they see all this when it's feeding time, and that's probably their favorite part of the day. I mean, if I were a horse, I'm not even a horse, and I get excited when it's feeding time. Okay, so when your horse gets pushy, start to correct that behavior beforehand, before they get close enough to even be pushy with you, right? So, for example, if my horses are, say, and a lot of it depends on how you feed your horses. Some of us will bring our horses into the barn and feed them into a stall. Some will put out maybe a couple of buckets out in the pasture and let them feed. Whatever the case might be, they need to come in quietly and orderly, right? And if they're not quietly and orderly, they can't come into that space, right? So if I'm bringing them into the barn, they need to be nice and quiet. They can't be pushing. So I'll take my steady stick out there with me. And if they're pushing, I'll wave that stick at them. I'll make them back up and back right up out of that barn until they lower that head, take their time, and then walk into their stall. If you're feeding out in the pasture, same thing. As they come in towards you, you're going to take that stick, add a little bit of pressure, wave at them, and make them stand still. And they've got to stand still, take a deep breath, lower that head. Really important that they lower that head, okay? Because that says that they're saying, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, okay? Once they lower that head and they're standing still and they're not being pushy, then I'll step back, and again, I'll kind of hold them there I might take another step, and then I'll let them come on in as long as that head is low. Anytime you allow a horse to come into your space with a high head, that horse pretty much is saying, screw you, or I'm the boss, or I'm taking over, right? And so you're encouraging that behavior if you allow them to come in with a high head, right? But if they come in nice and low and quiet, that horse is saying, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, I'm going to defer to your leadership. That's when we want them to come in with a nice low head. So a couple little things there that you can look for to invite them in, but they have to come in nice and quietly and patiently. Respectfully, of course, as well. Great question, Trish. Thanks for that. Okay, I've seen a couple more of y'all have jumped in, so I want to make sure I tell you hello. We see Deanna from New Jersey. Good to see you. Chastity, and we've got Julie from Iowa, and also Jeanette. Glad to have y'all jump on in here this evening. So glad that y'all are spending this time where we can talk about horses. Okay, so I've got another question here. This is from Sue. It says, I have a big gelding that is afraid of getting his stall door shut on him. How can I stop him from busting through the door? Oh, I like this. So a lot of horses, this is really, really common. And okay, so the exception for this, a lot of these big cold-blooded draft horses, they're so dull, doors can slam on them and stuff, they could care less. But the vast majority of horses, and even some of these draft horses, you're taking them through a stall and that stall door swings on them or touches them, anything behind the drive line for this purpose, if you consider behind the shoulder, any pressure back then, a horse is hardwired to go forward. This is a survival mechanism, right? So if there's a lion or a tiger back behind that shoulder, or if there's danger behind that shoulder, they're going to shoot out and drive forward as quick as they possibly can to get away from that danger. So when that door is slamming on them or just touching them or goosing them or whatever, they're not thinking about it. They're just reacting and doing what God has built into them to do in order to survive, right? So this is one of the things that we want to desensitize our ponies to. So if you have an area where they're goosing forward, just go and do some of the sending exercises and send your horse back through that door and then have them come back, and then back through that door and have them come back. What's eventually going to happen is horses like to conserve energy, and your horse is going to realize that they're wasting energy by just bolting forward out of that door each time. Because when he realizes, oh, I've done this 5, 6, 7 times and no lion or tiger or bear has come after me, nothing's gotten me, I don't have to waste that energy. That's more calories, more energy that I can utilize for grazing and being comfortable and hanging out with my friends and finding water, that kind of thing. So just be a little bit repetitive back and forth with your pony. Get them going back and forth comfortably where they're doing it at a nice, quiet walk, right? With their head nice and low. That position of the head is very important to recognize that your horse is accepting what you're introducing and asking of them. If you do that, eventually your pony will definitely get over that. So that's what I recommend you do. Really, really good question, Sue. Thank you for that. Okay, I've got another question here from Joelle. It says, my horse is herd bound. She won't even walk out of the barn when the others are in. How do I get her to trust me? Oh, that's really good. And you really hit on something there. It's that trust, right? And so it's good that you recognize that if she won't take your lead and your leadership to direct her somewhere, that she doesn't trust that where you're going to put her is a better place than being with her friends, right? So when you have a pony that wants to group up and be by other horses or his buddy sour, that kind of thing, you need to change their thinking. You need to make them understand that when you're asking them to go someplace, that is the best place for them to go. Now, if they don't go, so you're leading her out of the barn, or let's say it's in a pasture, because the barn is going to be a difficult place to do what I'm going to tell you to do. You might be able to, but we'll see. So you're leading her from maybe one pasture to another, or by a paddock or by another horse. She doesn't want to go. She's pulling towards her buddies. Well, let her drift by her buddies, but while she's there, start to send her around in small circles. And I say a small circle because you really want it to be work. Get that hind end up working underneath her, get her moving, right? And let her know, hey, you can be by your buddies and friends and all these other horses over here, okay? But you're going to be working, right? And then once she works for a little bit and she has a little bit of an incentive to want to slow down, right? So say if I'm trotting her in a circle and I can see that she's starting to maybe lower that head, take a deep breath, try to slow down to a walk on her own, those are all good signs that she's wanting to slow down, try to figure a way out of that. That's good. So then what we'll do is then you'll go back to asking her to go to where you initially asked her to go. And if she doesn't go there, well, then you put her back to work. But if she does go there, you're giving her an opportunity to rest. So you let her rest in that spot, right? Take a nice deep breath. Give her a rub. Let her know that she's awesome, right? Really affirm her and let her really begin to understand that where you ask her to go, good place. When she doesn't want to go where you tell her to go and she pulls someplace else, that's going to cause her to have to do a lot of work. She can go there. That's her prerogative. But it's going to be costly as far as the amount of calories and energy that she has to expend in order to hang out over there by those friends. Very quickly, she's going to learn, oh, man, when he points that direction, that's where I want to go because that's where I get to rest and relax. All right. I hope that helps you. That was a really, really good question. Thank you for that question. Okay, so I'm going to do, let's see, we've got another question here from Tracy, and it says, what do you do with a horse that is so tense every time you ride him that he breaks a sweat just walking the arena? He's an off-the-track thoroughbred that had a career as a show jumper before he bowed a tendon. I'm trying to switch him to dressage, but I just cannot reach him through the tension. Okay, so he gets tense. With these horses that get tense, one of the things that I see a lot with these tense horses is that it's kind of a what is it called? It's called one of these cycles, like one of these self-perpetuating cycles, right? So the horse is tense, then we get tense, right? And then it might make other horses around them tense, and so it just starts to kind of spiral out of control. One of the biggest things for getting a tense horse to not be tense is the grounding of the handler. Right? So you hear me say a lot, take those nice big deep breaths in those stressful situations. If my horse is getting tense somewhere, pattern interrupt, right? I want you to interrupt that thought process of the anxiety, of the tension, and divert that energy into an exercise. So whether it's backing up, whether it's sending in a circle, whether it's moving the hind quarter, just nice and quietly start to work on an exercise until your horse begins to lower that head, take a deep breath, soften their cadence, right? And they begin to become more relaxed and comfortable, and then go back to whatever you were doing. And then if they start to get tense again, then again, pattern interrupt that thought process and divert it to something that they've practiced, that they know how to do, that they can do comfortably, so that you're building their confidence, right? And encouraging them, letting them know, hey, we can get through this. You have the tools. We've done these exercises. And if you do that slowly but surely in those tense situations, your horse is going to learn that even in the tense situation, that they can count on you to give them the leadership they need to get out of that. But even more important than that, you're going to build their confidence that they have what it takes to get through those situations. So just like with everything else, be gradual, take your time, don't look for overnight success with this, but make sure that you're vigilant and looking for little progress with your horse and reward them for at least trying to get through those anxieties, because it's tough for these horses sometimes, and these anxieties are real to them, right? Okay, I've got one more question. It's going to be the last question, and then we're going to jump right into our weekly giveaway prize. So this one is from Mary Alice. It says, my horse was never taught to stand for a bath. How would you introduce that to a 12 and 25-year-old? Okay, so really good question, Alice. So I have a horse that doesn't want to stand tied for their bath. What I would do is I would start with having that horse untied and holding the lead rope. And I'd get a long hose And I'd start by maybe spraying the ground next to their feet. Maybe not right next to them or on their feet, but next to them, right? And gradually just kind of getting them used to that. And so by spraying away and gradually bringing that hose and that spray closer until I hit their feet, right? And say I hit their feet and they start dancing, well, then I'm just going to kind of hold on to them, take a deep breath, try to relax them through my body language, right? Until they stop wiggling and dancing around. The moment they do, I'm going to take that spray away. I'm going to quit spraying to let them know, hey, that was a good decision by standing still. And so once they accept it at their feet, I'll gradually bring it up and work my way up my horse's body and then work my way back down. The key is, just like with everything else, be gradual, be patient with your horse. Don't just go in there and start spraying them down. Especially don't have them tied if you know that they don't do well. Don't let your horse sitting back, getting hurt, getting into a bind. Just work it nice and easy with your pony, and it's going to do them a world of good. Thank you so much for that question, Mary Alice. That was a really good question. I hope that helps you. So I see a couple more of y'all have jumped on. Let me just make sure I say hello to you before we jump right into the giveaway. I see we have Barbara from Texas. Judy from Wisconsin, Melissa, we've got Lori and Kathy from Illinois, and we also have Michelle. So glad that so many of y'all have jumped on this evening. So we're going to go right into the weekly prize giveaway, and this week we're giving away one of the Steady Horse Gradual Desensitizing DVDs. And the criteria for entering to win was posting the name of your Steady Horse. And let's see, the winner today is Christina Douglas and her horse, Little Bit Salt and Rock. So congratulations to you, Christina. Super excited that you're going to get your DVD. Make sure that you send us an email. So you're going to send an email to noah@steadyhorse.com. And then Peter's going to get that DVD shipped right out to you. Listen, everybody, I am so grateful. I mean, I know I must sound like a broken record, but I really am. I am so grateful for everybody jumping on in here. I'm especially grateful for just how awesome you guys are as a community and a group here on Facebook. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say things like, you know, this group is special. I've never been a part of a group of people who are so loving and encouraging and positive. And that just, I mean, that's just incredible to hear, because that's what Steady Horse is all about. I mean, just as it's important to make sure that we are fair and steady with our horses, I think it's also important to be part of a steady community of people who are like-minded and who also are about just being respectful and encouraging to each other. So as usual, you know, I keep you guys in my prayers, and I pray that God just keeps you all safe and protected with your horses, and that you guys have just incredible and awesome experiences with your horses. Thank y'all so much. Y'all enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care, y'all.